Hello and welcome to the very first Savage Worlds sort of live drawing session. My name is Storn Cook. I will be recording this and editing it for my tabletop talk and draw series on YouTube. If you have any questions, you feel free to throw them into the chat. This is, a brand new venture for me. So yeah, so I've got here a thumbnail that I had already done. I sort of knocked the opacity down because I'm gonna basically be drawing right on top of this thumbnail and correcting things as I go along. Like I can tell that this head and neck situation is not a correct one. So, and the idea is there's some giant leviathan that grabs energy from ships and sucks out their energy, and that's how it makes a living. So we have, um, you know, observers of this phenomenon happening, and this is for a supplement called I think it's called Raiders of the Ghost Zone. And the ghost zone is where these science fiction elements kind of come to happen. So I'm going to start in on sort of drawing this character here in the foreground, which I will do on its own layer, and that way I can come back and make adjustments easily. And let's get working here. So I think I want to have kind of a, yeah, let's see here. This just might be my line drawing section. So I'm going to start with his helmet situation here. And I don't, since this is going to be in color and I'm going to be painting this, I'm not concerned about the lines the way I would be if I was inking something, right? Uh, Inking for like a comic book, superhero comic book look is a very different situation. I think I'm going to change my color here, and you know what? I'm actually going to use a mechanical. Oops, that has been set to dot, and I just want pen. All right, let's make it a little thicker, a little greener. Don't like the shape of that, so let's do something a little different. Let's do. They're a little bit of a different kind of helmet shape than we normally see, right? So I'm gonna go back to this kind of dark brown because I like that dark brown for stuff. And my program wants to automatically save. There we go. It's done. Do do do. It's a little helmet. So we want this guy to have a surprised look on his face. I think I want him. God, why is it doing that so much? Okay. So these little lines that I'm putting in here are just kind of delineate, are sort of a shorthand to like remember to put shadows there because I'm not really doing little mic coming in. And so Now, one thing I do want to pay some attention to, just because it makes my life easier, is to make sure I have a complete outline around the character. The lines inside the character, I can be a little bit loosey goosey with. Like, I don't have to have this as a complete line. That can just be an indication that I want some kind of form there, right? And I can kind of just ghost this in. This doesn't have to be anything completist, but on the outside, I want it complete because that will allow me to select just him. I think I have to move my screen a little bit because my wrist sometimes doesn't like certain angles to work at certain angles. And it's if I tilt the picture and come from a different, oops. So my understanding is that um, you know the player characters in this role playing game, they're sort of their you know reason for being, their raison d'etre is they make their lives, make their living salvaging goods from old derelict wrecked spaceships and mining and maybe occasionally piracy or something like that. But the Ghost Zone is known for its wrecked ships and whatnot, and so keeping that in mind, I want to um, create sort of a battered look to the spacesuits, right? Because I think they should. This is not some ultra tech oriented corporate entities where they have matching spacesuits and outfits and stuff like that. No, this stuff is held together with duct tape and baling wire, and pardon me 1 second while I take off my vest because I'm getting very hot. Oh. So maybe some actual. I don't like this tangency. This is a tangency right here. So I've got to figure out a way of like having the kind of the duct tape go past. You can draw a lot with your eraser as well as whatever the stencil tool is, whatever your drawing implement digitally is. I'm going to just put a patch here. I don't know why this patch has sort of little square rivets, I think, to do its thing. So yeah, I just want some wear and tear. I can kind of do little wear and tear and stuff. So there we go. There, I think he is. Um, yeah. So then, so I'm going to call this front astro line, And the reason I call it line is because the next layer is going to be front astro color. Front astro color. And I'm just going to fill this with a tone. There we go. Now I can drop my key there, and so now I can set the color tone layer. Oops, I made a mistake. Okay, so let's go back. So I did not complete my, because I had erased there. There we go. Now, oops, I did it on the wrong layer. Okay, and now I have that tone in, and now I can just lock the pixels, which I mean, it will only draw where there are actually pixels. If I draw out here, it does nothing. If I draw in here, that's the only, well, it's the same color, so there we go. Now you can see it. So now I get to go in and start to bang out some of my light and shadow stuff. I like to use this cube brush because it lays down tones very quickly. I'm going to light, oops, why, oh, because my cube brush is set to multiply. I want it set to normal. There we go. You know, I can start to think about bringing in some lights. Usually I start with shadow shapes first, but for some reason, just because I had this brush already selected, I'm going in. Right. You know, and then I can come in with some, make the shadow oops. You know, and I don't have to worry about drawing outside the boundaries of the character because I have that locked, and that makes I can be very fast and dirty. And I want to be kind of fast here. This is just preliminary. This is not going to be beautiful. This is just get get shapes down, get interesting shadow shapes down, and interesting light shapes, and start to work where I want my values. What's dark? What's light? And how can I make that interesting? I think is sort of, you know, a big part of an illustrator's job, as well as like making sure that the story is somewhat clear and that you're telling a story, right? I mean, we're telling a story of these guys seeing this enormous creature going by. And one of the things that the client and I talked about after I submitted this thumbnail was I had the thought of, in order to show its true scale, I could have a ship actually encapsulated by those tentacles and being, you know, its energy sucked dry, And I think that will push the figure, the Leviathan, back in space and actually make it bigger at the same time, if that makes any sense, because we're going to have something next to it that will, you're going to say, oh, that's like, a Corvette sized ship. And so one thing I can do here, just from an art technique point of view, is I've sort of scumbled in some of these darker tones and whatnot, and I've been pretty messy about it. But since the line is on a different layer, um, it's not getting disturbed, right? The line itself is not getting disturbed as I do this. So that allows me to come in with a blend tool, make that a little bit bigger, and start blending a little bit if I want to soften some of the rougher spaces or have more of a transition, in that form. Um, like not every shadow is sharp. Um, Although in space that might be a little different. You gotta kind of gotta keep that in mind. That's not what I wanted. Where's my brush that I wanted? Did I just lose my cube brush? That's annoying. Yep, I dragged it out of. Where is it? Hmm. I just lost my favorite brush. I don't know where it went. Oh, here it is. I want it to go in there into crap. There we go. Now it's back. Sorry about that, guys. Don't usually do that. I can start to think about some color here too. Is like, okay, what color do I want that patch to be? I think some kind of purplish, very gray purple. I've set my cube brush to be about, let's see, 50%. No, it's 80% opacity. So some of the gray that I put down behind is going to sort of bleed through. I think I want his suit to have sort of a soft red color, so he can kind of stay in the. Or I should be using a bigger brush. Always use the biggest brush possible, they say. There we go. That was too sloppy. Okay. don't know if you can hear my dog barking away outside. Starting to get a little annoying. So at some point, I want to collapse my my layer of line and my colors together, so then I can start to actually obliterate the line if I want to, or I can come back and enhance if I want to also. So I'm going to do that now and reselect. So now I can kind of come in here and like that green line, which was just to delineate where the helmet was going to end, and I might actually come in and softly erase some of it to allow for the space behind the darkness and the like the various items to bleed through the helmet a little bit. And I'm giving him a little bit of an underlight, like there's sort of light coming from inside his helmet. One thing I could do is, oops, that's not the way I want. I want that. And I can go in there and I'm just working my skin tones. Oops, sorry about that. So his head is coming here, and that helmet is too big. So I have to shrink that helmet down. That's bothering me a lot. So I'm just going to grab that. I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste it, and then I can shrink it down somewhat. And I'll do OK. Go back to the other one. Get my a little bit better. So the face is coming along nicely. I'm going to leave him alone for now because I want to work on some of the other elements. And then once I have those elements in place, I can come back to him and decide, oh, what needs to be darker, what needs to be lighter, what needs to have more chroma punched up and stuff like that. And I'm just going to step away for a second, get my dog out of the outside. Okay, puppy, you have to calm down. I have to calm down. I have to do work. I have to do work. Oh, such a happy puppy. Such a happy puppy. So I think the next element I want to do is I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call him Far Astro. Get him. Okay. Excuse me. This figure here, I'm not so worried about. Oops. Having all of his details right because it's going to be kind of a silhouette shape. Although I don't think it's going to be it's going to be lit because I sort of want the somewhat. Oh, maybe he'll be silhouetted. I don't know. We'll see. And you can see I'm kind of deviating from the thumbnail because the thumbnail is just a really rough preliminary illustration. Let's give him a little bit of a butt there. So that's the hard plastic, and so I wanted a line coming from him. I think I'm going to do the line also separately. So let's see, that is in front of this layer. So safety line, and I think I'm going to do that as a Bezier curve here because I want that kind of. It's not what I wanted to do. Alright, so let's just try continuous curve. That's what I want. That's the tool. Why can't I? There we go. Don't like it. Okay, now that I got that line, I think I can freehand using that as a guide to make the thick, because I wanted extreme. Oops. There we go. Now I can lock its pixels, and I can do fun things like, oh, we're just gonna have this section be a little lighter, and see it doesn't affect the background. I can have this section be a little darker. Why are you barking? They don't want to hear you bark. And then it's easy to do like some segmentation. Don't love that color, so I'm going to go with light blue. I can change the color and stuff like that as I get other things. Ooh, I had it. I didn't have my I thought I had the whole thing there, and I didn't. So let's here. There, and then we have safety line. Go back to the far astronaut, and see if he is. Yep, he is viable. And we then invert the area, create a new layer, and we can fill him with the color. And then I'm going to come in with my cube brush. I'm going to set it to multiply so it doesn't erase the lines, and because I think this figure he's got some shadow on the hull of the spaceship, so that the light source is in front of him, coming from the two stars or moons or whatever that I kind of put up at the front there. So I'm just, yeah, I want this. So I like multiply, setting my brushes to multiply, because you can kind of keep going over and over and over again as like almost a watercolor effect, or a glazing effect in oil paint. And you get sort of these happy accidents of textures near each other and stuff like that. And I think it sort of makes the dark areas a little bit more interesting to look at, but without them drawing all your attention to them immediately. I think I got to kind of leave him alone for now, because a lot of how dark he is or how light he is going to be dependent on some of the other things that we're going to do. So this is front far astro, and we're going to do another layer, spaceship hull. There we go. And now I'm going to work on the hull. So what I'm doing is kind of working in a different fashion than I would like doing an oil painting. Oil painting, I tend to start in the background and work my way forward. So the things that are farthest in the background, I paint first, and then I paint the next object on top of it. And that, because it's just easier to do the painting and overlapping that way. Digitally, it is sometimes easier for me to do the front elements first, and then because they're blocked in and the layers there, anything I put behind them, um, is you won't see unless I toggle the layer off. Um, um, and this way I can kind of keep, but I have to kind of keep in mind, what am I doing with the farthest background, what am I doing in the midground and stuff like that. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about, you know there's going to be, purples and blues and sort of a dark spacey Kirby-esque thing going on, and some debris field and whatnot. And I got to kind of keep in mind what I'm thinking about in terms of color, what I'm thinking about in terms of value, and then go from there. So with the spaceship, I think I'm going to lay in its lines, in sort of a light gray, and I'm going to use a lot of straight lines here and curve tools, because it's a real mechanical thing, right? It's not. And so in Clip Studio, if I hold the Shift key before I start drawing, it'll give me a straight line. And then it'll also, because sometimes I fat fingered it, it brings up my sticky keys, which is really annoying. Oh, that is so annoying. Okay, hang on one second. I gotta figure out how to get rid of my sticky keys. And then I think I want. Oh, I didn't like that. I want to just use the regular curve tool. I'm just giving some things some subtle curves. Um, instead of straight lines. Oops. Sometimes when you pull too fast in Clip Studio on the curve tool, it wants to kind of rebel against that. So here's our spaceship coming in. So I can eliminate him, and there we go. We can get that in there. Getting in there with some details. And I'm not so, it's the ship hull is not going to be something we're going to spend a lot of time. I'm hoping that the observer won't spend a lot of time looking at. Because that's not the focus of the illustration, right? That's just literally is what we're sort of framing and supporting. Stop that. It's framing and supporting the characters with, and I can put Astro Boy back there, and yeah, and then let's see if I got, yep, okay, so then invert the selection, under the hull, create a new layer, and this time I think I'm going to go with a gradient. Perfecto. What's going on with my gradient here? I don't want it to be circular. I want it to be a shape. There we go. Cool. I can set the hull to line. This is the to multiply, and maybe I kind of like that sort of soft thing, and then I can rasterize this. I thought I could rasterize this. There it is. And then combine these two. There. And now we have a hull. Now I can lock its pixels too, and start coming in with some tones. I want to maybe distress the hull a little bit. So I can come in here with some textures here. That's set to multiply. Oh, that's okay. It's set to multiply. And just kind of putting some dirt and some grit. And some speckle. Um, okay, we got a spaceship. And then we're gonna. You know what? And I should save this because you should save often. Um, I usually do in P, meaning in progress. So, and I will also save this to my backup hard drive. Just in case. Okay. Okay, so I have to rethink the Leviathan a little bit because I want him to be holding a ship. So I'm actually going to go back to my thumbnail and just sort of put some preliminary, like, work out where I want that ship to be. So I think I want the ship to sort of, you know, that's a little too parallel to the ship that I have. That's boring. So let's change the angle up a little bit, and you know, um, sort of let's go with kind of a dart shape. We can have sort of sucked up, and then I think I'm going to have sort of expanding the engine block and stuff like that here. Mm. I think I want something kind of very mechanical and um, like some kind of merchant freighter, so it's not pretty. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to have the tentacles be very dark near the form, with the Leviathan form, and then um, uh, change in a gradation as the energy is coursing through the tentacles, and that wraps up the ship. So, do. So I think it's going to be a very square looking ship, and I think I'm going to do it off center, so it's I don't have to go for symmetry in a real spaceship, or I mean in a fake spaceship set in space, because you know I don't have to. It's fantasy. I'm making this stuff up. I think I'm going to put some sort of thrusters in front. So now I kind of have reworked my sketch a little bit, and I think I need to draw the spaceship by itself. Just not liking that shape. Just not coming in for me here. That's a little bit better. Sorry, I'm just concentrating on. I think there should be some forward thrusters here. I'm not sure if the setting is a hard, like expanse like setting or not, or if it's more, like there's artificial gravity and stuff like that. But I'm going to err on the side that there's sort of Newtonian um, physics in play. Is a little bit obnoxious. So one thing I can do, because it's on its own layer, I can go to tonal correction, hue, saturation, luminosity, and I can play with it. I can change its hue a little bit. Yeah, that's a little bit, and drop the saturation down so it's more of a gray. And do I want it lighter, or do I want it? Don't know. I'm gonna leave it like that for now, because that'll work. Okay, and then we get to draw the Leviathan. So this is a little bit complicated because I've got the Leviathan. Parts of it are going to be above the spaceship, and parts of it are going to be behind the spaceship. And it's easier, I think, to put the spaceship on its above in layers, um, above the Leviathan, and then I can draw on the spaceship the actual tentacles itself. So, yeah, it's Leviathan time. Okay, so I think I want something pretty dark and giving it some kind of nostril structure, even though it's in space. It grew up in space. I don't think it needs to smell, but it sort of maybe vents for the energy that it takes in. Um, yeah, multiple eyes are always fun and alien looking. And I think like I'm gonna want the out um, this to be kind of shadowy and not um, doesn't need teeth because it just sucks energy. So does it look like a vacuum cleaner? Like a vacuum attachment? I'm not sure here. Yeah, I'm thinking kind of like manta ray. And this is the stuff that you need to think about when you're it's no different than world building as a game master. Okay, I don't like the tentacle coming for that little. That's better. I like that little engine, sort of side thrust engine thing there. I wanted to keep it. So we're just gonna drop the spaceship guy out of the way for a second. I just want to lock off my. Little tentacle things coming off of here. Mm. So I think I'm going. I'm going to create a new map and do my Leviathan tentacles on that. So there's one tentacle, and there's another tentacle. Got like these sort of odd sucker shapes. It's too close to the ship. Your eraser is your friend. Do not be afraid to erase. It's much of as a drawing tool as... I think I said that already today. That is really tight in there. I don't like that. Oops. I like that, though. One of the cool things about drawing monsters is you don't have to worry about human anatomy. It's getting a little confusing with how many tentacles I've got going on, but oh well. Okay, a gap here, so This one's going to be complicated. Oops. Where is that? I got green on there. There it is. The safety line drawing. All right. There we go. Get rid of that. So then we have our Leviathan. All right. So now I want to have some space debris. Let's just some shapes out here. Okay, space crap. And then planet. We're going to create a new layer. It's going to be the sun back there. Okay, and then finally the last bit of thing that we have to do is I'm just playing around with some of the hue and saturation in the background. See if I can get it to be interesting. That's kind of interesting. It's certainly different. Don't see that green yellow sun very often. I might have to change that, but that's something that we can have there for a little bit. So I'm going to take a break and come back to this in a little bit. So I'm back playing in this a little bit. I created a star field. I think I want to darken this up a little bit. Yeah, it's starting to read a little cooler. All right, I'm gonna go into the Leviathan here. And then, all right, I'm gonna grab this. Okay, I'm just having fun with my alien critter here. So one of the things I want to do is kind of make this creature a bit more. Why is there a cat? There's a cat who wants my attention. Oh my gosh, this is Eli. Hello, Eli. I can't play with you. Uh, Back it out, see how it looks. Looks pretty decent. I'm going to save it. I'm going to take a break for a second because my shoulder's hurting a little bit. So for some reason, this section here did not get uh, the sound went out on me. For some reason, my entire sound channel was nothing but um, static. So I'm just going to do this as a time lapse, and yeah, I don't know. I'm just letting you know what's going. Doesn't look like I'm talking a whole lot, anyways. So it'll hopefully be okay. Well, good morning. Welcome to the next morning. I put this down for a little bit because I was sort of struggling, and I wanted to give it a little time to kind of sink into my noggin on what I wanted to do. So, one thing I want to do is darken these suckers up, and I think I want to darken up the space debris in a lot of. There we go. Let it. So really, the front astronaut is giving me the most trouble on what I want to do. I do want to darken up these. There we go. To get them kind of more even with the other shadows that are being casted. Um, yeah, so let's start going back to the front astronaut and seeing if we can sort of figure out what we're trying to say and what we're trying to do. I like these sort of orange colors and stuff, but I don't know. There's something a little off. I'm not in love with the shape of the helmet. I'm going to change the helmet for sure. But let's just keep pushing on and see if we can get somewhere. You know, I'm letting this edge be kind of fuzzy, and which is a stylistic decision, because it's not an important edge. That's one thing you can do is like if an edge is not super defined, the eye is more likely to skip it, and which is all well and fine, except it would actually be almost an impossibility in space because in space there's no atmosphere to provide any kind of atmospheric diffusion, right? So that what I'm doing is completely falls under the category of artistic liberty. It has nothing to do with reality. Nothing. But that's okay. That's okay. We've got guys standing on a giant spaceship watching a incredible, enormous creature eat a ship. So, yeah, I'm not particularly worried about, you know, Carl Sagan coming and knocking on my door and saying, and coming back from the grave. That would worry me more than him knocking on my door saying that's not physically correct. Uh, Fun fact: I live in Ithaca, New York, and that's where Carl Sagan taught. My He taught at Cornell University, which is in Ithaca, New York. My grandfather also taught at Cornell University, was a professor of mathematics, and knew Carl pretty well. Um, Carl's house, was on a cliff in the gorge, in one of the gorges, the beautiful gorges that surround Ithaca, and it's like the coolest looking house. I've never been in it. Um, my grandfather had several times and said it was really interesting, really neat, kind of for its time, very modern architecture. We're talking late, probably was built late 60s, early 70s would be my guess, just from looking at it. Actually, might predate that because I got back to Ithaca in 1971. We were living out west when I was very, very young. I was in San Francisco until I was 4. I turned 5 coming back to Ithaca. My mom wanted to be closer to her parents, and so that's why we came back. Um, but my earliest memories are actually in San Francisco, where I bought my first comic. I learned to read from comics, and my first comic was a war comic. And then my mom, being the hippie that she was, would go to these parties at this one people's house, and I think it was Mac's house, who actually ended up moving to Ithaca as well. Very sweet guy. Unfortunately, he's passed away. Um, and there was this stack. I mean, it was a big stack, probably like that of underground adult comics. And this being the early 70s, and me being the only child in the entire social circle, I was left to my own devices. So I would pour over those comics. And, we're talking Zap, Robert Crumb's, stuff in Zap Comics. We're talking the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. Yeah, so I knew what sex was at a very early age. And the one that really caught my eye was a comic called Herman Head. And Herman Head? I think it was Herman Head. And it was, the adventures of this sort of down and out hippie who got would have sort of more incredible, like pulpy type adventures than the other, sort of entrees, which were really more about, you know, being a hippie and drugs and stuff like that. But while he was into drugs, that was for sure. He would do he there was one issue where he flew, I think, a B-24 B-17 over Mexico into the U.S. to bring back a shipment of drugs. And the reason I'm bringing up Herman Head, for no other reason than to hopefully amuse you, is that hey, you want me to talk about Herman Head too? This is Eddie. He's barking at me because he wants attention. I've given you attention. You got to go and do. You got to go do your own thing, man. I'm working. The reason I'm bringing up Herman Head is that it was immaculately drawn. I mean, it was in the style. I didn't know this at the time, but it was in the style of Wally Wood, and who was a draftsman that influenced Frankfurt Zeta and was an incredible comic artist and was known for his incredibly detailed science fiction. Wally Wood did a lot of science fiction. So the artist who did Herman Head, and I can't remember his name. I've looked it up a couple of times, but it's just not a name that sticks with me. He was a Canadian guy, and I don't think he went on to have a lot of success artistically after that. I But my God, his stuff was so good, and it was very Wally Wood esque. So like the B-17 that he was flying looked like a B-17, and I was already kind of at the age of 4, I was already kind of devouring military history books, especially World War II. So like I could recognize that was a real looking plane. Like that was and so I think that was a huge influence on sort of me thinking of art as things that I wanted to I gravitated towards art that was realistic, um, for whatever reason. So it happened again, and I'm not sure what's going on, but I suspect that my USB camera is picking up my voice, and it's switched from my headset, which I prefer to wear. So I'm gonna do this as a time lapse, and I'll just sort of narrate and talk about what I'm doing as instead. I wasn't real happy with that helmet design, so the helmet shape. So I kind of redid that again, and I'll play around with sort of scumbling some sort of plexiglass surface on over the face, and I was much happier with it. I think that's much better. Let me know if you guys like the long format or if you like sort of the time lapse and would prefer the time lapse and have me sort of narrate over what I was doing. Um, Both have their advantages in post production, and both have their disadvantages. So it's sort of, kind of up to what feels better. I don't know. I don't know what you guys like in terms of that. So any feedback that you can give me, that would be awesome. So one of the things I went in and I played with the contrast of that front astronaut there, and I was getting to become much happier with it. I talked about my signature here a little bit. I do not like a signature to be super super overt. I like it to kind of just be the most tertiary little accent over in a corner somewhere or next to someone's foot or something like that. I think it's important to call attention to it. I felt like that eye was a little too close to the nacelle there, and so I wanted to move it. So that's what I did. I dropped the sun down in size a little bit and sort of darkened up the planet that's in front of it, or moon, or whatever the hell that is, and that's pretty much it. So if you like this kind of format, and please let me know, and please hit the subscribe button. That helps me out a lot, and the like button too, and leave comments and all that kind of stuff. I'd like to, interact and engage with you guys more. And Yeah, so this, the Savage Worlds, Raiders of the Ghost Zone. I'll come back and do another one in the next couple of days. And meanwhile, keep on keeping on.